You have 5 companies generating over $1 million a year in combined cash flow, and the person sitting across from you at this coffee shop thinks you manage inventory for a regional distributor. They are not wrong exactly. You do manage inventory. You manage it across a commercial cleaning operation, a vending route, a document shredding company, a mobile notary staffing agency, and a parking management business. You think about inventory every single week. Cleaning solution levels, machine stock counts, shredder blade replacements, stamp supplies, lot maintenance schedules. The details are real and they are yours and they are profoundly uninteresting to describe at a coffee shop. So you say you manage inventory for a regional distributor. The person nods and moves on. Good. The number that crosses your accounts every 12 months isn't something you arrived at through a single decision. It wasn't a pitch meeting that went well or a funding round that closed or a product that went viral over a weekend. It was 11 years of a very specific kind of patience that doesn't get talked about because it doesn't look like anything from the outside. It looks like a 2018 Ford Escape with a small dent in the passenger door you've been meaning to fix since March. It looks like a zip-up fleece from a sporting goods chain. It looks like someone who is doing fine. The first company started as an observation, not a plan. A Tuesday afternoon and an unusual amount of attention pointed at a small, ordinary problem. You were picking up a package at an office complex. Not your office. A building you'd visited twice before for an unrelated errand. On the way back to the parking structure, you passed a utility room propped open, and inside were 3 industrial shredder units, 2 clearly non-functional, 1 running continuously with a small paper tray jammed at the base. The bin was overflowing. A handwritten note taped to the wall said, "Call Gary." You didn't know who Gary was. But you spent the walk back to your car thinking about it. Who owned that equipment? Who serviced it? Was this building paying a company monthly for document destruction, or was this an in-house situation that had clearly stopped working? You spent 40 minutes that evening researching on-site shredding versus scheduled pickup services for commercial clients. You found a market that was quiet, necessary, and structured in a way that almost nobody outside it would ever think to look for. Medical offices. Law firms. Financial services companies. Human resources departments in mid-sized corporations. All of them generating sensitive documents every day of the week. All of them legally required to destroy those documents in specific, documented ways. All of them either managing it badly in-house or paying a large national vendor a monthly rate with a multi-year contract and an auto-renewal clause buried in Section 11. You found the space between the national vendors and the in-house chaos. You built a local responsive operation that underpriced the nationals by just enough to matter, provided certificates of destruction that held up to compliance audits, and answered the phone when clients called. Year 1, the document shredding company netted $31,000. You did not celebrate. You used it. The second company was a vending route, and it started the same way the first did. Not with ambition. With looking at something most people walk past without really seeing. 3 machines in a medical building. 2 more in an industrial facility on the eastern edge of the city. 1 in the lobby of a physical therapy practice that had been there so long the staff didn't remember who restocked it or why it kept running low on the same 2 items nobody ever reordered correctly. You found the operator through a property manager who had been trying to reach him for 6 weeks about a broken machine blocking a fire door. The man was running 16 machines across 9 locations out of a spreadsheet on a 7-year-old laptop, and he was tired. Not tired in a way a vacation would fix. Tired from running something past your capacity for too long, past the point where it stopped feeling like yours. You bought the route. Not all of it, not at once. 4 locations to start. You paid him a fair price, took the problem off his desk, and hired 1 part-time driver to handle restocking while you focused on expanding the placement network. Within 18 months the route was 43 machines. The net margin on a well-run vending route isn't dramatic, but it is consistent. Cash weekly, no receivables, no invoices sitting 30 days in someone's accounts payable queue. The money is already in the machine. You just go collect it. By year 3, the vending operation was clearing $88,000 a year. The commercial cleaning company was acquisition number 3, and it was different because you didn't find it. It found you, the way things sometimes find you when you've been operating quietly in a market long enough that people start to know your name without knowing much about what the name is attached to. A business broker called on a Monday. He had a client, a woman in her late 60s named Patricia, who had spent 23 years building a cleaning operation serving mid-sized commercial properties, 2 school districts, a regional hospital network's administrative offices, and a portfolio of professional buildings managed by a single property management company. No children interested in taking it over. Her operations manager was competent but not entrepreneurial. She wanted out within 18 months and she wanted someone who would keep the staff employed and not immediately flip the business to a national consolidator. You spent 3 weeks inside her books before you made an offer. Not her presented financials. Her actual books. Tax returns, payroll records, vendor invoices, client contracts, cancellation history over 5 years, equipment maintenance logs. You found a business messier on paper than it needed to be, not from dishonesty but from 19 years of growth that had outpaced the accounting systems meant to support it. Underneath the mess, the cash flow was genuine and durable. You paid $340,000 for it. You financed part through a small business acquisition loan that, given the cash flow you were stepping into, paid itself back in under 4 years. Year 1 under your ownership, the cleaning company netted $218,000. That was the year the numbers stopped feeling abstract. The mobile notary staffing agency was the 4th company, and it was the one that made Richard, your accountant, a composed and methodical man who had been doing books for business owners for 22 years, pause longer than usual before saying anything. The premise sounds too simple to work at scale. That is precisely why it works. Real estate closings happen every day. Title companies, escrow offices, mortgage lenders, and law firms routinely need notary publics available on short notice to travel to a location and witness document signings. Hospitals need bedside notaries. Estate attorneys need notaries available within hours for clients who cannot travel. Financial institutions processing refinances need them on consistent turnaround windows. Notaries are licensed at the state level. They are not employees of the firms that use them. They are independent operators, managing their own schedules, their own marketing, their own calendars, with varying degrees of effectiveness. You built a dispatch and coordination layer on top of that fragmented market. You recruited and credentialed a network of notaries in 6 metro areas. You built the relationships with title companies and estate law firms and lender operations departments. You became the reliable infrastructure they could call at 9 a.m. and have a qualified notary at a location by 2 p.m. You do not perform the signings. You own the infrastructure connecting the people who do. The model took 14 months to become cash flow positive. The margin structure in year 1 was uncomfortable, not alarming, but uncomfortable, the way early businesses feel when the revenue is real but the operating costs of building the network haven't compressed yet. By the end of year 2, the agency was netting $167,000 a year on consistent volume. Richard looked at the summary, read it twice, and said, "You've built a dispatch company for paperwork." He did not intend it as a compliment. You received it as one. The parking management company was the 5th. In some ways it is the quietest of all 5, the one that requires the least attention and pays you most reliably for that inattention. You do not own parking garages. You manage them. The distinction matters. Property owners, office buildings, hospitals, retail centers, they own the physical infrastructure. They have no interest in running it themselves. They want a monthly check and 0 headaches. You provide both. You negotiate management contracts, place equipment, hire attendants where needed, manage software platforms that track utilization and revenue, and remit a percentage of net revenue to the property owner after your management fee. The capital requirement to enter this business was low compared to ownership. The knowledge requirement was not. You spent 8 months inside the industry before you signed a single contract. Utilization modeling, equipment amortization, violation enforcement logistics, insurance liability exposure in specific lot configurations, the negotiation dynamics between operators and property owners in markets with oversupply versus undersupply of parking. You signed your first contract for a 78-space surface lot adjacent to a medical complex. You now manage 11 properties across 2 metro areas. Depending on the quarter, the management company nets between $190,000 and $240,000 a year. Here is what the 5 companies look like together on paper when Richard sends the annual summary in a plain email with no subject line decoration. The document shredding operation has been running for 11 years and nets approximately $94,000 annually. The client base turns over slowly and replaces itself at roughly the same rate it churns. The contracts are quiet and renewable, and the compliance requirements that drive the demand are not going away. The vending route nets $103,000 across 51 locations. 2 part-time drivers, 1 maintenance technician who works 3 days a week, and a product purchasing relationship with a regional distributor that keeps margins where they need to be. The commercial cleaning company nets $231,000 this year, the highest it has ever been. Not because you changed the model, but because Patricia's operations manager, a man named Terrence who has been with the company for 14 years, turned out to be someone who improves steadily under ownership that actually pays attention rather than just extracting. The mobile notary staffing agency nets $198,000 across 6 markets, running on a scheduling platform that required significant investment 2 years ago and now operates with minimal intervention. The parking management company nets $214,000 this year after a strong spring and a new contract signed in February for a 120-space lot adjacent to a university medical center. Combined, the 5 companies generated $840,000 in net income last year. With capital appreciation in property equity tied to 2 of the businesses, the figure Richard writes on the summary line reads, total verified cash flow and asset appreciation, $1,062,000. He sends it on a Thursday. You read it standing in the parking area behind one of your vending locations, waiting for your driver to finish a restock. You type back, confirm thank you. And you put the phone in your pocket. Dana is a woman in your professional network who has been building a boutique brand strategy consultancy for 4 years. She is talented, genuinely. She can walk into a room and understand the communication problem a company has before anyone has finished explaining it. She has been posting consistently, building an audience, pitching retainers, doing the work, and trying to scale past her own hours for 2 years without quite getting there. She asks you once, at a small gathering for local business owners, what your biggest piece of advice is for someone trying to build something real. You think about it for a moment. You tell her, find the need that doesn't go away. She looks at you the way people look at something that sounds like a fortune from a paper sleeve. Present enough to nod at. Not concrete enough to use. You don't press. That isn't your role, and she didn't ask for more than she asked for. But what you meant was specific. Find the thing people need when the economy tightens, when the market shifts, when interest rates spike, when some new platform rewrites how an entire industry operates. Find the thing that was there before the disruption and will still be there after it. Documents still need to be destroyed. Offices still need to be cleaned. Snack machines still need to be restocked. Cars still need somewhere to park. Signatures still need to be witnessed on paper with a raised seal. None of these are glamorous. Not one of them will produce a profile in a business publication or a compelling origin story for a keynote address. They will not be acquired by a technology company for a multiple that makes headlines. They will just keep running. Quietly, week after week, long after the interesting thing down the block has pivoted or paused or quietly wound down. The person at the coffee shop asks a follow-up question. They want to know if the distributor you work for is hiring. You tell them you're not sure, that you'll check. You won't check. There is nothing to check. But the answer costs you nothing and ends the conversation cleanly, and you've learned over 11 years that the cleanest exits are always the ones that leave the other person with nothing to pull. On the drive home, you pass a strip mall with a vacant end unit that has been empty for 8 months. A faded for lease sign in the window with a phone number that looks like it was printed 5 years ago. The lot is paved, well lit, positioned on a corner with 2 points of ingress. You take a photo of the phone number. You don't know what you're looking at yet. You never do, at the beginning. But you've learned that not knowing is the starting position, not a reason to stop. The 40 minutes you're willing to spend on something most people scroll past without slowing down, that willingness is where things start. It has been, every time. Richard sends a follow-up email Friday morning asking for clarification on a depreciation schedule for the cleaning company's equipment fleet. You respond in 4 sentences. Then you drive to the laundry supply wholesaler because one of the school district contracts starts a new semester schedule next week and you want to verify the supply order personally rather than assume Terrence caught everything. Terrence is reliable. But the habit of checking is something you will not let yourself lose just because the number got large. The number got large because you never stopped checking. You park in the lot. The dent on the passenger door catches the morning light. You go inside and confirm the order. The company does not care about the dent. It requires the attention. It always has. You drive back the same road you came in on. Nothing about the outside of this morning looks different from any other morning in the last 11 years. That is the point. It has always been the point.